guys, welcome to another ride in the struggle bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today we've got our next bus ride, and this one is against a 13K on OGS, and it was a shorter game, but it was an interesting one. We go over how to reduce and how to invade large territories. So if that's something that you are interested in, take a look at the game, but I think it'll be enjoyable for everybody anyway. So let's get on with the game. Okay, so we are white against a 13K. So we will, again, be focusing on just the basics. So we're going to be going after our corners, and then sides, and then the center. And so he starts by attaching to this stone. And when we get attached to, we typically want to either hane or extend. In this case, I'm just going to extend up. This is staying strong, and it's going to develop a large corner here, and I'm just going to keep on extending. And in this case, just going to keep on going. If he wants to give us fourth line territory, that is a good exchange. He will get this nice wall, but we will get more points here, and he wants to do the same thing on this side. And you want to know what? Let's do it. I don't think blocking this way is how we want to go, though we could consider that and look to build this up. We could play here and then hane here. And you want to know what? Let's actually do that. We'll block this way this time, just so we can further build up this right side. And we are going to take this hane, and we will extend. And with him doing this, we now have a cut that we kind of have to care about a little bit. So I'm going to protect the cut. I expect that he will hane. He did not. And so here, we are nice and strong. He's strong. We're strong over here. So we finally have sente to play elsewhere. And so we're going to go approach this stone, and I'm going to approach high. Not too much thought was given into if I want to approach high or low, but I decided to approach high. Here, when he extends, we're typically going to attach underneath his stone, and so that is what we're going to do. And here, we're just going to extend to make sure we're nice and strong. We don't want to get Atari'd, right? So we're going to play that, and then we're just going to jump out to get a base for this group. And typically, they will come back and do something. Now here, we can look at protecting this cut, right? Because this does threaten the cut. And typically in this situation, I might leave this alone, but one of our rules is we're going to protect cuts. And so we're going to protect it this way, so that if he does play here, we get to ladder him. And this is not sente, so we can now go approach this stone. And we will approach in a similar manner. We will approach high again here as well. And this is an interesting response. We can, this isn't something we would expect to see. We can look at attaching on the outside here, but that kind of looks a little complicated. We can also just attach here, and that's what I'm going to do. This looks simple enough. I don't think we're going to get in trouble by it. And so we'll attach. If he extends, we will connect. And he backed off, and we're going to back off as well. And we'll back off high, just like this. And so this is just keeping our group nice and secure. And even though this might not be Joseki, this looks like an outcome we would expect from a Joseki. So this is fine. And he took this hane. We are also going to respond. And we'll play this. I expect he's going to hane again. And we will extend to stay strong and protect this cut. And we will push one more time. And you'll notice he is building a huge territory here, but we are also building a huge territory. And he's got a very large territory down here, or the potential for one. But you'll notice he now played very high. This is a little too much in the center for something that is this wide open. And this looks scary, but there's no way that he can stop something between these two stones. They're just so far away. Yes, this wall is strong, but there's just too much room to live in here. And so, and that's true for the upper side as well. But we're going to start down here. And so the question is, do we want to play on the fourth line, which typically means we want to get in and get out, or we want to play on the third line where we're going to try to live? And there's a lot of room in here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to play the fourth line stone because there's a good chance that we'll be able to live in here anyway, but this will give us more options. So we're just going to play here and we can see if he's going to give us a base down here or if we're going to be forced to run out. So he attaches. So again, we're going to either extend or Hane. And he did break one of our rules here, right? He attached to a weak stone. And one of our rules says to not attach to weak stones. So in this case, we're just going to stay strong. I'm not going to look at Hane because he could cross-cut, and we do have to respect his strength. But what we're going to do is we're just going to extend this way. And then we're going to extend this way. And we can look at something like this. This is a little tricky, right? But he has this cut here, right? He made this knight's move. And so we could look at something like this because he's not going to be able to split these stones. So let's take a look at that. It's a little interesting, right? This move here, because it threatens to cut and we can connect here. So what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we're not going to get split here. And so let's just connect. We'll stay super solid here. And again, we now have this cut that we can look at. But before we do that, let's make sure that we are 100% good. We're going to expand off of this group. We're going to jump into the center. And yes, this is a central move, but we need to make sure that our group is okay. And we should be able to turn this into something over here. And we did mention that there's this cut here. And so he did not protect it. He's playing on this side. Looks like he's going to try to surround, but he didn't protect this cut. So let's give him one more shot to identify that cut is going to be an issue. And we'll play a simple move like this, just a knight's move that will expand what our territory is over here. We'll strengthen this. Hopefully it'll clue him in that there's a cut here that he needs to fix. And he's going to jump out here. So we want to make sure that we're not going to get surrounded. I'm going to take this Hane first. And now that this is connected, now that he's connected rather, and we've got this, our shape is pretty good here. Again, we can still probably cut through right now, but that's not what we're going to do. We want to make sure that we're nice and strong out here. And so I'm going to give him one more move, or give this group one more move, just make sure we're nice and strong. And he does eventually fix the cut. And so here, the question is, now we've got this cut, do we want to fix this? And we want to make sure we fix our cuts. So I'm going to play here to fix that. And he plays this, which is unfortunately Gote, right? We weren't really concerned about this at this point in time. He's fully connected, we're fine. And so now we can play elsewhere. And now, where's the next big part of the board? Well, we already kind of discussed it a little while ago, right? I said that down here was big and up here was big. So we're gonna do something similar up here, and we're gonna look at a fun little trick here, and it's called a peep. So this is a good shape, right? He's nice and connected, but if we play here and he lets us connect, then that's annoying, right? And so what we can do is we can play here, get him to answer. And now we've got an extra stone here that, might help us, it might not, who knows. But in this case, we're going to leverage off of that. And this is such a wide span that he's going to have trouble containing these stones. And so I'm actually going to go on the third line this time. Because it's so wide and we have this stone here, and he's going directly after that stone, that we can do things like this, right? With these initial moves that we call probing moves, or peeps, but in this case, I actually don't care about that stone. He can capture it. So we're going to connect here, and I expect he's going to Atari. And when he Ataris, we can Atari, because we never cared about that stone. That stone was just to help us here. And so now we're going to Atari, and now we can start jumping out. We're going to do so with good shape. And here, he won't be able to cut us with this shape because of the J17 stone. And so now we got in, we disrupted all of his potential up here, not all of it, but a good amount of it. And we're going to be able to get out. And now look at what's happening here. We built this strength and we're able to get out, and we're getting in and getting out. And now we're surrounding this very large area in the center. And he's now Atariing this stone, which actually isn't that important of a stone. He can have it. He can have that one too. Because what we're going to do is, now that we've gotten this stone, and he didn't really respond to it, we're going to look at building this up. And so let's block the stone that can get into it. And so we will play here. And he hanes, which is expected, and we will also hane. And so he captures. And that is okay. So what we can do now is we can look at connecting. We can look at Atarying this stone and then connecting. But if we Atari here and he Ataris, it might get a little funky, but not really, because we capture and then we can capture here. So what we're going to do is we're going to Atari this stone and see if he's willing to trade. And if he's not, then we will go and look at something to connect up here. And I'm going to do so this way. This keeps it simple. We connect up here. We connect up here. And he plays this nice looking aggressive move, this cut here. And yeah, we did leave a cut, but this is going to be one that's tough for him to get out of. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to Atari so that we can connect up, and we're going to push the stone towards our strength over here. We do have an obvious weakness here, right? So we do have to keep that in mind. But none of our stones are really in trouble here, and he is looking to come this way to connect to these stones. So maybe we can do something like block him from going that way. So maybe we can play a move like this that just stops him from going in the direction that he wants to go. And he's got Atari, he's got that Atari, but he's already surrounded. We can make good shape, and now he has to find a way to live in here, which is going to be really difficult to do. Because all we need to do is block him. And he's got that Atari, but we connect. And if we look at this from a liberty standpoint, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can, all we need to do is make sure that he can't get out, and we will win the liberty race. And so that is what we will do. We're just going to surround this group. He's looking to take away liberties. And we've got two options now. We can get more liberties for this group or kill this group, right? So this is obviously going to be a liberty race. So let's just look at getting more liberties for this group. And so we will play here. And we will play here. And we will connect. And we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's only got 5. But we can connect to this at any point in time. So we can play something like this. And now we get these liberties. So let's start taking away the liberties here. As he reduces ours, if we connect, let's count. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we connect, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's got 4, but we get to go first. So we are in a full-on liberty race. And we had already counted, so we know that we are ahead. And black has resigned, which makes sense because this was pretty much a game-ending fight. You know, going back when he had played this move, this basically turns this into a huge game-deciding fight. Once we Atari'd and he came out and he, after this point, decided to keep on putting stones into it. This is just a game-ending fight. And you know, I've mentioned many times in this video series that, you know, one of the unfortunate sides of this is if a game comes down to a fight, you know, I'm going to most likely be able to outfight my opponent, right? And so this is a situation where I'm able to slow down and count liberties, and he might not be, you know, he might not have a lot of experience with liberty races. He might not be able to read all that out. He might not have known that it was a liberty race. And so I can look at this and read and go, okay, I know I'm fine. And I know that that's not necessarily the case for you guys. But once we get here, you know, it's a liberty race, and we can count this. But there is one little tricky thing that we have to keep in mind. But right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 liberties, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's worth noting if he plays G15, which he did in the game, that forces us to fill our own liberty. So you got to be aware of moves like that. So even though we're up by 2 liberties here, we're actually only up by 1. So now, when he plays this, and we count, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's his turn. So we're ahead in this, but not by much, right? We're ahead enough that we're going to win this liberty race. But when he did this, we were able to extend, you know, to extend our liberty count. But you don't need to play a move like this, right? If this is a little too much to look at, and we know that, honestly, in this situation, just capturing this is enough to win your games. And that's often the case where you just need to make sure you win the fight. If you're not 100% sure, you know, go ahead and take one of the liberties away. But in this case, if you were able to slow down and count, then it'll work out in your favor. So let's take a look at the game, and we'll do a quick review. Okay, so here's the beginning of the game that started off, you know, normal for the first 4 moves, and then Black played this this attachment, which is not a typical approach to this corner. You know, we would normally expect, if he's going to approach this corner, to either approach high or approach low. Obviously, he can also look at approaching the other corner, or, you know, extending off of one of his. So realistically, these are the options that I would expect. But there's tons of playable moves. You can do lots of things. This one is just a little off because it's going to give white a really large corner, which is what ended up happening, because we can just extend. We could look at playing this, but I don't think that that's you know, the best direction to play. And this is simple, right? Just stay solid. We get to push ahead of him, and we're doing so on the 4th line. Normally, if this was shifted over, this would be considered somewhat even, right? Probably better for white because we're the one pushing ahead, but it wouldn't be too bad. But with being on the 4th line, this is white getting a really large, you know, a lot of points here, right? Every one of these stones is going to be getting us pretty much 3 solid points, and I'm not sure what Black's getting out of these 3 stones. I wanted to just do this again, right? If he was willing to let us get this, but this would make kind of like this really weird symmetric board that I'm not really a fan of. I actually don't like symmetry in my games, so I decided to go this way and see if we could just get strength and build this up. So he pushed, we haned, and then we protected our cut. I mentioned in the game that we could have pushed and not been too concerned about this. Because we can push out. But this does start a really big fight, and it does just make things messy, and there's no reason for that. So we protect our cuts. Okay. And then he jumped, and we decided this was not Sente, because it's not Sente, right? If he doesn't have a follow-up that we're concerned about, then we're not going to treat this as Sente. So if it's not Sente, it's Gote. And if it's Gote, then it's our turn. It's also worth noting that on the top side, he has a lot of 3rd line stones. So I don't like this just on face value, because it just continues his row of 3rd line stones. We want to balance our 3rd and 4th line stones. So we approach high, and he played here, which is good. This is a good response. I had just mentioned that he had too many low stones, so here's a nice high stone for him. We attach, he hanes, we extend this way, he descends, and we extend. And for the most part, this is Joseki. You know, Black he's looking to settle here. We're looking to settle here, and everything is fine. And then Black pushes, and we get to extend here. This isn't a great exchange. We could have also just looked at connecting or blocking this way. Black doesn't get too much out of this exchange, and what it does is it forces white to fix any of the mistakes that he had. So not a great exchange for Black there. And then he plays another move that isn't sente. So in this case, you know, he's now played 2 moves, 1, 2, that he probably should have Tanuki from. So these are basically giving white 2 free moves. You know, they're not terribly small, but they're, you know, that is certainly not as big as playing this. I think we can all agree that this would be a big move. This would be a big move. Just playing E15 doesn't get there too much. So we Tanuki and we play here. And he does this, and honestly, seems like a reasonable response. It's not one that I see, but it doesn't seem bad. Because this looks like a fine result for black. This looks like a fine result for white. You know, if he had played here, we would have played this. And if he had jumped here, maybe we play here. We probably don't, right? You know, we probably want to extend. But then if he played here, you know, in the game, I probably wouldn't answer this move. But it's not terrible to answer. So it's possible black even got something out of this, because if we played it in this order, I probably wouldn't want to answer this small second line move. But since he played it first, and I saw it as a good way to settle, this is, you know, this exchange is actually probably a little better for black than it is for white. If this were one of my games, I probably would have looked at attaching outside, but this is going to create complications, right? This isn't going to be anything that turns into something simple, because it's very possible that we just get cut immediately. I would have to read out to see if this is the move. It didn't feel like a nice basic move. This felt like a nice basic move. And so we continue on, and he takes his Hane, and we Hane, and then he Hanes again. We push, he pushes, we push. And for this, the amount of times you push versus them, it's always interesting, right? Because you're building up this huge territory here, but they're building up this huge potential. So it's always a question of how far are you willing to go? And I never really know the answer to that. But he Tanuki'd. And unfortunately, he Tanuki'd really high here. If he wanted to extend off of these stones, he probably could have come back here or here. I probably would have played something like this. Right, this is a good natural extension. We mentioned in our previous video that however many stones you have that you're extending off of, you can extend that many empty spaces. So if you're coming off of 3 stones, you can have 3 empty spaces. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. So I probably would have looked at playing here. This is just a little too middle in the board, right? This is a very big area that's going to be really easy for white to invade. You can almost throw a dart and just pick one of these 10 spots, and it's going to be okay. And so we picked K4, and he played under, and so we just kept him low. And this might not look great for you guys, right? You might be looking at it like, oh, but we didn't actually do anything, right? He still gets all this area, but not really. He's only getting 3rd line territory. So he just secured 6 points here, which really isn't that much. And we get this nice healthy wall. And if you've watched my previous games, you know that I like having influence. I like working with it. So I enjoy getting this. And then this move really isn't needed. If this was my game, I'd probably jump out right now. You know, either here or I could continue to push, right? Because we don't actually care about this cut, because we got the Atari, we connect, and if he cuts this way, look at what that K7 stone did. It set up perfectly to eat that stone. But we connected, and he connected, and then we jumped out. I decided to play this, give him, you know, really turn this cut on, and we did one more enforcing move. That's right, and then I gave him one more shot. I was like, okay, make sure we're really strong before we go take our cut, right? Because we want to make sure we're healthy too. And then he did protect his cut, and then we protected ours. If I really, really, really wanted to be extra safe, I could have played this, but this looks reasonable enough. And then, unfortunately, he plays his 3rd big gote move. So we have 1, 2, 3 big gote moves this game, which were just, you know, the reason that these are so important is these are 3 times that our opponent has had sente and then gone, I don't want sente anymore. I mean, that's not what he said, but you know, that's what the moves say, right? He had sente, he didn't use them. He didn't use those opportunities, and we essentially got 3 free moves, which is huge. It basically turns it into like a 3 handicap stone game, but for white, that's a bad thing. And so, as I mentioned, we've got one more area to go after, and so we did this peep first, which is an interesting little trick. He blocked, and then we played here. And I mentioned, but it's worth going over because this is really important. So let's go over this topic because a lot of people have trouble with invasions. Also, hi, I'm that person. I have trouble with invasions. You know, they're tough. They are tricky. But I do know the basics of them, right? And so one of the main rules that I tell people who I'm helping is rule number one with invasions is the first stone that you play doesn't need to live. But as long as you get something to live, you're going to be fine. So we played this stone, but this is just to help us here. We actually don't need to save this stone at all. And so now we play here. And so this is a perfect example. Black went after that stone, and I said, you want to know what? You can have that stone. That is my gift to you. And I played here. And he went and Atari'd that stone. And I was like, yes, that is your stone. You can take it. And now we've got this. And because we played this stone, Black responded with this, this, and this, all to secure capturing that stone. So while he played those 4 stones, we played these 4 stones, right? And this was all set up by this stone and being willing to sacrifice it. And you can see just how much value we got out of this, how much we were able to fully reduce Black's potential and territory up top just by sacrificing this, and then also knowing, good shape and being able to invade successfully. I played this move because it protects the cut this way, and it protects the cut this way. Actually, in this situation, we can Atari, and then look at this, right? And so we're alive and healthy. So he played here, and again, we actually don't care about that stone. What does saving the stone really get us? Not much. And so I was like, you can have that one too. I'm going to take this turn because it's clear that this is going to be what we're looking to get here. And so he Hana'd, we Hana'd, and then he captured, we Atari'd, and then connected here. And so we gave up 2 stones, but now we've pretty much fully sealed this off. We really reduced what his top was going to be, and this looks, very, very, very dangerous now. And this coupled with the right side is just going to be too much for Black to handle. And then he took this cut. And you want to know what? Maybe this is what Black needed to do. Maybe Black needed to do this to get back into this game. But as I mentioned, it's tricky because he's not fighting against another 13K opponent. He's fighting against me, and it's not really fair. But it's the nature of the beast with these videos, unfortunately. And so I already went over this at the beginning, and that is how the game ended. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We were able to keep this one mostly basic, which is all I'm looking to do, so I consider it success as well. Anyway, thank you for coming out on another bus ride today, and thank you for coming out to another ride in Struggle Bus where every wheel's an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.